she had this one incredible line in it where this man says, I don't forgive him, but I do understand him. And I was like, that is elite humanism to me. That is elite thinking.
That's human enough, is just understanding.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we've lost that along the way.
Totally. I think it's harder.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Welcome to the latest episode of Authenticated with your host, Kate McLeod. I am intrigued by people. People watching, I love. People learning, that's where I'm insatiably curious. I'm interested in the why and how of the creative mind's pattern of thinking, the subtext to the creative thinker, or in its more conscious and malleable form, the creative conscious. Because when you are so clear on yourself via the triad of consciousnesses, then you become reflective to others. Meeting yourself is an infectious practice because what feels good is infectious and something I think we could all use a good dose of. So join me in conversations with a diverse arsenal of creative thinkers, from artists to entrepreneurs to serial thinkers ready to optimize their creative conscious. With me, self-made and self-proclaimed creative entrepreneur. Sounds hot, right?
Welcome to the podcast, Erica Hart.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you in person. This is so nice.
It's, the 2025, and I think even just social media in general, when social media came out, it's like, wait, I know you, but I've never seen you in the 3D.
Yeah.
So, that's, I think now the last 5 years, it's very much of I know you, but we've never done this.
Actually met.
Yeah.
But your warmth that everyone talks about comes through even through virtual, it always came through. I had this interaction, I think it was last year or something, but someone who I knew just very well virtually. And then we met in person and it felt weird and I didn't know why. And he said something about your body's amazing. And I was like, what did you just say to me? And he goes, I've never seen it.
Never seen it. Never seen it.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I want to really quickly congratulate you on, I just saw that you were named top 25 women to watch on Broadway.
Yeah.
By the Women's Fund. That is incredible.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting that because I'm very new to Broadway. I made my Broadway debut in 2021 and it was on Passover, which was the first show back. And then right after that was Chicken and Biscuits. And then I did Death of a Salesman and Jaja's African Hair Braiding. So I'm very new when it comes to Broadway. And to receive that honor, I was like, wait, me? And also what I've been saying, to uplift casting. I think casting is one of the ones to be forgotten on lists like these. Certain casting directors and just casting professionals are always overlooked. And so I'm happy and grateful for myself, but also honored that casting is on the list.
That there's a new pattern,
exactly,
an acknowledgement of that sector of the arts.
Yes.
I agree with you. I feel like that actually has always been something that is quickly seen past because it's a part of the process and we're in a product-driven art form.
Yeah. I also think we're the first ones along this very long journey and we're not on set. We're not in the rehearsal room. We're not on stage during tech, and so it's we got you here, right? But we're not present when everybody else is present. So I do think that goes along with it when you're seeing certain craft and departments every single day where you're not seeing us every single day because we're not on set. We're not there. So I think that definitely goes into play.
Yeah, but it's your hand in the whole
100%.
game was it's lasting through the entire time. It's this was incredibly done. Well, yeah, because you assembled the cast.
Exactly. And usually when we start off, it's just the script, the director, the playwright if it's a play or a musical. But it's very intimate with that team. And then the team grows and we kind of go away. So it's interesting. It's an interesting pattern, as you said.
Yeah. I like seeing the world in patterns.
I'm obsessed with patterns.
Oh my God, wait, me too.
So obsessed.
Yeah, it's
so obsessed.
It makes everything make sense, and I think it's because I fell into the hole of loving fractals.
Come on, Matt.
Yeah,
come on.
Well, I was like, there's the evidence, right?
Yeah, sure. Exactly.
I love woo woo just as much as the next person.
100%. Give me a sage. Yes.
A sage, a crystal, a rock. Oh my God.
Yes. Give me a recharge under a full moon. Yes.
Give me the new moon.
Yes.
If Mercury can get out of the microwave, that would be awesome.
And I'm an Aries, so
it's literally doing for you.
It's for me and against me at the same time.
Yeah.
But yes.
Okay.
It's a mess. We're living and we're breathing.
But we're breathing. Yeah.
And that's, bare minimum.
But I love all of it rooted in science or in
100%.
logic
Yeah,
too, where it's
yeah.
like, I'm not doing just this for the sake of doing it. I'm doing it because it does make sense.
Yes.
And also patterns for me are so easy to identify because then I can correct them or be like, I love that. That worked. Let's do more of that.
Yeah.
It's like reading a script,
100%.
essentially.
No, I like when patterns change, because then it's like, okay, what has changed for you to not have cream of wheat every morning?
Yeah.
Why are we making this change?
Yeah.
You always leave and take the 8:10 bus. Now you're taking the 8:45 bus. Why is that?
Yes.
So yeah, I'm always interested in those patterns, because usually why we're breaking the pattern, that answers so much more than maybe you weren't even looking for.
Or than you even realized
100%.
yourself. Like, let someone else
100%.
bring your awareness back to that.
Yes.
Because what from cream of wheat brought you to steel oats?
Raisin Bran.
Raisin Bran. Yeah. What was the gateway there?
What was the gateway there? And why did we stop?
Yeah. And how are you different now?
Mm-hmm.
Is it for the better or is it for the worst?
Hello.
Yes. Great.
We could go with this.
Forever.
New episode.
Yes.
New episode.
Next one.
Patterns.
Yeah. Well, when I approached you for this episode, I was really intrigued by how minds change, which is, this is the perfect segue into that.
There we go.
It's like, how do minds change, especially when it comes to creativity? Because an issue I have with like I don't work well for people. I work really well with people. And so when systems are in place and they're like, this is the system, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, question the system, because maybe you do need to go to steel oats from cream of wheat. So like, look at the system. How is the system meant for the people who you actually asked to be a part of it? So you get a script as a casting director or as a producer, depends on which hat you're wearing. You get a script. People have already put their artistry into it. It's its own creative hub on its own. You get it. You bring yourself to it. You have your own creative perception. You have your own lens of it. And then people come in and have their own ideas, and these things like change. So it's never what you initially think it is. I want to talk to you about the ego in that and like what happens when your mind changes creatively.
Yeah, no, I think first thing is you have to realize what arena you're in and who is in the arena with you. Right? Because at the end of the day, I think a big misconception is that casting has the final say. And like I said, this is a long journey into night.
Yeah.
And then, the sun rises. And so just realize that we are the first step along this long journey. And we don't have the final say, and sometimes that is a pro and sometimes that is a con. And like you said, I too like working with instead of for, because I think filmmaking, theater making, any type of making is a collaborative art. And that's what makes it so, one of the things that makes it so beautiful.
Yeah.
Is that, you need, without, one person, it all comes crumbling down. From a PA to the director, you need everybody for this ship to go. And so I think it's realizing the people that you are hopefully working with and what battles need to be fought and what battles that maybe you need to put in the back of your pocket. It's like, am I really going to fight for barista number 7 right now when I know that I'm going to have to fight for the series regular? Okay, maybe let that pass.
Yeah.
And maybe hold on to that. Or if it is a true collaboration with a group of people that are open and ready and willing to hear opinions, then yeah, you can have those conversations and maybe ask those questions. But I think the thing that excites me about casting is, like you said, you get the script, you get the breakdown, and it's written and everything is there.
Yeah.
I love when it's like, be specific, but keep an open mind. That's what I try to tell creatives, because everything is subjective. Nothing of this is set in stone. We can edit, we can rewrite, we can do all these things. So you could have written a character a specific way. But I think one of the fun things about my job is like, I can bring in 3 to 4 people who are that exact thing. But maybe I also bring in 3 to 4 people who are a little bit left or right of that. So it's like when you see their tape or when you see them in person, you think, wow, okay, I never knew my words can do that. Or wow, I never saw this character in that way. Or wow, they're not great for this, but they're actually great for this other character down the line that no one has actually heard about because it's been in my head this whole time. Or wow, this person would be great for a movie that I'm developing, And so again, that's the beauty of art, is that it's ever evolving, especially television, because it is an evolving medium. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of the job, is that there is that sense of play. Or I do a lot of work in comedy. It's like, yeah, you've never seen them do a comedy before, but that's mainly because they haven't gotten the opportunity to do one.
Yes.
But I know they're funny.
Mm-hmm.
I've, been out with them, or
Yeah.
I met them once and they were having me laugh the whole night.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like, yeah, their resume doesn't have anything comedic, but they're a funny person. Let's just give it a whirl.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
I love that so much because it means that your ability to people, for lack of a better term, is so diverse, where it's just like, if you keep an open mind, it actually gives you more answers.
Yeah.
Do you have a hard time conveying that to people that are on the other side of the table?
When you say other side of the table, what you mean?
I mean, by other side of the table, like in the front, you would have the people coming in with ideas, and then the people behind, other side of the table for me would be people signing off on the ideas.
Oh, interesting. I think what I tell people, regardless of what medium, but especially television, there's so many people, in front, behind, cha-cha, real smooth. Like like there's so many people that have to approve. That for actors, I try to tell them that you gotta let go of the them. What do they want? What should I do for them? You gotta let that go, because for any one role, there could be 20 people that have to say yes, And sometimes I feel like the waiter, because it's like, okay, you want the chicken, you want the steak, you're a pescatarian, you're on a juice cleanse, and you had a big breakfast and you don't want anything to eat. So water, like that's what we're going to be doing today. But yeah, I think it's a lot of psychology sometimes. I tell people who want to go into casting, take at least a psychology course or listen to a psychology podcast or like read a psychology article, because sometimes it is not what you're saying, but how you're saying it. So if you're, the showrunner and it's between two people, but I think actor A would actually be better, maybe say, so, and you're talking and you're like, well, this and then that and then this. And I'm like, well, what I'm hearing you say is that I think you're leaning more towards actor A. What do you think about that? And you put it on them.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I think you're right. I think I am leaning towards actor A, versus, sometimes it's like, well, actor A, actor B, it's great. Like, what do you like about actor A and what do you like about actor B? Yeah. And it's just conversations. And then, sometimes it's showing more tape. Sometimes it's bringing them back in. Sometimes it's having a meeting with them. I just want to meet them. Okay, let's meet them.
Yeah.
Let's bring them in. Let's have a conversation. Let's make it happen. So there are many tricks to the trade, and it's realizing who is the actual ringleader of the circus and who do they actually listen to. Yeah. And sometimes it's nobody. They are the only one that listens to themselves. And sometimes it's like, oh, they listen to this producer, and it's like, let's talk to that producer. How do we get them on board so that person can get that person on board? And then sometimes it is you. Sometimes it's like, listen, this is my first feature. I've never done this before. These big names are really interested in my script. I don't know what to do. And then you become like the coach, you become the manager, you become this person, So when you're talking about you wear a lot of hats, it's like, there's a whole table of hats. It's like the Gutenberg, sure, where it's just constantly like changing the hats. But yeah, it's project by project, medium by medium, person by person.
And that is the healthiest approach too. So I find this a lot with creative consulting, where it's like, my power is listening.
Hello.
Because you know the answer and I know you do.
Yeah.
And my job here is to empower you to know that you know the answer.
Yes.
So when someone is saying, I don't know, it's like, so what I'm hearing you say, for your example, is that you're leaning towards actor A. So no one comes to you and says, I want you to make a decision for me.
No.
Because no one's just someone else's decision for you is never going to hit as hard as your own decision for yourself. Right. And that's why it's so interesting to have actors who have really good opinions. That's why it's interesting to have anyone who has good opinions, because
and I think that's what choices are. When people are like, when you say big choices, big bold choices, it's your point of view, your opinion on the work. Yeah. And that needs to stand alone on its own, whatever it's standing on. But yeah, it's definitely confidence building for everybody. You know, it's like, you are fine. You are going to make the right decision. I am talking about woo-woo. I am very much of the thought of like, every decision is right until it is wrong.
Yes.
And there is no right or wrong. There's just a decision. There's just a way, if you make a decision at 12 o'clock and you're like, that's right at 12 o'clock. Yeah. Maybe by 12:01, it's like, oh, maybe I should have thought about that a little bit longer. But when you made that decision, that was the right decision.
But see, this is the buy into the evolution.
Yeah.
Right? Is knowing that things are going to change.
Yeah.
Because I, like, similar to you, I don't believe in success or failure. I just believe in information.
There it is.
And I'm just an information gatherer. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so I failed here, but actually it just means that wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
It's not the right time because and it's that feeling. Evidence for me in that way is like when something hits, it hits.
It hits and it like vibrates and it stinks and it's great.
Yeah.
But you learn from it.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, that didn't really work out as I thought it would. Or like you said, fail. But I agree. I don't believe in failures. I just believe in lessons. It's like, okay, I maybe shouldn't have crossed the street, when there was that big puddle and I knew that a car was coming and it's gonna, okay, so now I know maybe if there's a big puddle, like go around that puddle.
Yeah.
Because we're, like you said, we're evolving.
Yeah.
And you look at patterns and you learn from them.
Well, this malleability of evolution that you're talking about, or just receiving, really, it makes me think of, I know that you have a dance history, right? It makes me think of, one, your strength in nonverbal communication. And it also makes me think of listening to that vibration, listening to that movement of the other person, where it's not like, okay, I'm gonna go down, you're gonna go up, okay? Like you're
Yeah. No, I tell actors all the time that I think one of the biggest things that people forget about is body language. And we realize and we forget that body language is a language. So a lot of my notes is like, activate the body. Like, what are you doing with your body to tell the story? Sometimes when I'm looking at self-tapes, I'm like, I don't know, I'll turn off the volume. And I'll see if I can understand the story just via how they are sitting, how they're leaning, how they're looking at somebody. Oh, you're touching your your ear. Why are you touching your ear? Like all of that is important. Maybe you're still.
Yeah.
There is power in stillness. Maybe you're not looking at that person when they're cussing you out. Maybe you're dialing back in.
Yeah.
All of that goes into the choice. All of that goes into your opinion. But yeah, I love movement.
Yeah.
I love movement.
It's I always ask clients or people I'm talking to, really, just I'm curious in people's thoughts. I just love people.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, what is your definition of that? Because we have English, which we're communicating via, but like you have your own interpretation of words. So it's like earlier, you're like, what do you mean by your other side of the table? Which means that you're such an active listener. It's that give and take, because you listen to see where the opportunities are to like expand upon someone else's reality and then bring it closer to yours. And that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think casting is such an empathetic, or should be an empathetic medium, because I think the business is a business of many middle people, like it's like we are the connection between the actor and the showrunner, but then we're also the connection between the showrunner and the studio and, sometimes of that nature. And so I think what we do is just inherently empathetic because we are seeing many of these actors for the first time. Maybe it's their first audition. Maybe it's their first TV audition. Maybe it's their first theater audition. Maybe they just graduated from school. Maybe they took a time off because they were helping with their parent and now they want to get back into it. Maybe they're venturing off into voiceover and they just want to give it a try. It's such a vulnerable state to perform, let alone something that is in draft a lot of the time, which is like auditioning, and to be there and to be listening, when you are in person, or even just watching a tape and being like, you know what, I think that does need an adjustment and I do have time to give that adjustment. So let's give that adjustment. And it's always so interesting to see directors or showrunners or just creatives have their first casting session, especially actors who then create, because listening is still work. Like and each actor that comes in is going to come in with their different choices and their different opinions, and you have to be listening the whole time so that you can then give the adjustment to that specific thing. And it's so interesting when a director or a creative comes in and they're like, oh, first day of auditions, and then to see them 4 hours later, they're like, I need a nap. This is so exhausting. Yeah. It's like, yeah, because you're present. You are active. You might not be saying, things 24/7 out of this whole session, but you are listening and actively listening and giving each person that 100% for that 10 minutes, that 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
And you're buying into that reality. You're switching lenses. You're seeing behind someone else's eyes. Of course that's exhausting.
Yes.
Being human is exhausting.
Hello.
Like,
it's chaos.
Yeah.
It's a day, a week, a month, a year, chaos. Decade, millennium, whatever it may be.
That is why we're required to sleep.
Yes. If we are privileged enough to hit the pillow, you know what I mean? Like some days it's like, all right, I'll table this sleep for tomorrow. Yeah. But yeah, sleep is very important. And hydration. Drink your water.
Hydration. which I've
Drink more water.
underestimated.
Oh, girl, we need you some water. You
I
need to
know.
get some water.
But then 30 happened, and it was like, you underestimated this?
yeah.
Boom.
Wait until 35.
Oh, can't wait. Every year I'm like, oh, this is the best year of my life. I got wiser and love it.
Yeah.
And just like celebration and
Yeah.
just, I always feel like I hit my best self every single year.
That's beautiful.
I can't wait till the next, you
Yeah.
know, and I have big dreams and aspirations, and I feel like every year I just get closer. And so I'm always just like,
well, I mean, that's just natural,
Yeah.
right? Like
Mhm.
every day you get closer because
Yeah.
a day passes.
mhm.
And once a day passes, literally you get closer to something,
yes.
you know?
Yeah. I try to like have goals, but I don't
Mhm.
want to define how it looks along the way.
100%.
I can be,
100%.
that's what being present is being
Yeah.
like, oh, and that's what it is. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
recognize the patterns
Mhm.
and, you know, be like, okay, so this is working. And so when I have those moments of like lulls, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, this is how I get back to my normal
yeah.
stride.
Mhm.
What you were saying earlier kind of brought something up for me about vulnerability.
Mm.
When actors come in,
Mhm.
or when writers come in and have their scripts, or when directors come in and have their vision, any creative who comes in and has their idea, there is vulnerability in that.
Yeah.
From your vantage point in the room, what is your perception of the artistic like shame that people carry?
Oh, the artistic shame.
Just to get real deep real quick.
That's the title of my memoir. The artistic shame. I think it's just pleasing. Like I think we're just people pleasers. I think at the end of the day, because we are performing to get something in return, whatever performing means for you. You know,
Yeah.
performing could be writing, performing could be, you know, saying words, performing could be dancing, performing could be, you know, sending a group of selects to my director. You know, we're all performing in some way, shape, or form. And so I think the artistic shame also, because the beauty and the beast of this business is that nothing is concrete.
Mhm.
There is no rubric. There is no syllabus. There is no, okay, if you study, you know, for X amount of years, then you will become an intern, and then you will become a resident, and then you'll become a doctor, 1, you know, law associate, 1 year law associate, 2 year law. Like there's no partner, like there's no trajectory
Yeah.
in that. And so I think because of that, it becomes frustrating, but then it's also freeing
Mhm.
because, you know, Jessica Chastain always said, you know, you're only one thing away from the thing.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
You know, all of us are just one thing away from the thing,
Mhm.
to your point, moving in the right direction. And I think because of that, it's frustrating. And I think comparison is the devil. We all are seeing what's to the left and to the right of us instead of looking forward, and we're human. That's human.
Yeah.
You know, regardless if you're like, oh, I don't compare myself. It's like, well, probably
Well,
you do at some point.
Yeah. I mean,
you
it's a
know?
safety mechanism for
It's
your
a
brain.
safety
So,
mechanism.
yeah.
So I think there's just shame, and also, like I said, it's a very raw experience. You know, I also write, and I usually write from a very personal perspective, and it's like, okay, this is very personal.
Mm.
Now I'm going to share this, even if I have one person read it. It's like you are seeing a piece of me that is usually hidden, but is now on page
Yeah.
with words to follow.
Mhm.
And it's like, will you like it? Like, are you gonna judge me for it? Are you going to make fun of me for it?
Yeah.
You know? And so I think that's just inherently human, but because we are artistic and because we are connected to the sensitive side, I think it's an interesting way to put it. I'd never heard of the artistic shame in that way,
Mhm.
but I think through shame there is also glory, and through glory there's also a celebration, but through
Yeah.
celebration there is also defeat, and the yin and the yang, and all of the
It's the
stuff that we got to
balance.
go through. Yeah.
Yeah. And the shame, usually, whenever I see it come up with someone, whether it's someone coaching or it's
Mhm.
like just an artistic process or a creative consulting client, it's like, why is there shame there? Look there. There's
Mhm.
energy there that
Yeah.
you're just misusing.
Yeah.
You know, because when I was just straight acting, I fell into that pattern of like, well, I need someone else to co-sign on me. I need someone else to sign
Sure.
off. And I was like, man, that does not feel good. And
Yeah.
also, what does that practice actually mean? So then I moved to writing, then I moved to producing, then I moved to creative consulting, and I start doing these other things where I'm like, okay, well, I actually kind of don't want to be a part of the pattern that says that I know I'm talented, but I am valuable when someone else co-signs on me. Instead, I'm just going to start practicing co-signing myself. And then that way, I'm actually having a more educated ask or more knowing ask when I say co-sign on me, because I've practiced that so much for myself. And it feels normal to me, where it wouldn't feel foreign to go in and then say, okay, so now can you green light this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the hard thing. It's because like in this business, yes, you have a creative thing, but you do need green lights from other people to make it happen no matter what.
More green lights along the way.
Because it's such a long process.
It's such a long process. Even commercials, which I can be hired for a commercial in the morning and be cast by the end of the day, like that you still, you got to go to your fitting. Like that needs a green light on what you're going to wear. You got to go to makeup, you got to go to hair. Like that needs a green light. Where are you going to stand? That needs a green light. Like everything we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. And then, if you are the creative, it's like, okay, you wrote a script. Great. It's not going to stop there. You're going to get notes from from your director. You're going to get notes from your studio and network. If it's television, you're going to get notes from the theater. If it's that, you're going to get notes from a producer, regardless of what medium it is. And you're going to get notes until, opening night and maybe even after that, you know? So I think, you got to be open. You got to be open.
Well, which I think is good because to have an end point of anything, right? I love constant evolution because it's constantly present too. So it's like the rewrites, if they are constantly happening, that just means that we're acknowledging the fact that sure, there's a fourth wall here. Yeah. Like we are watching this, but it's also happening right now. And these are real people and these are real circumstances and real things. And so I like that evolution. But okay, so for you guys, so you cast, you get everyone green lights, the cast list you have. Do you often recognize the final product?
That's hilarious. That's a good question. Yes and no.
Okay.
There are often times where you audition, and the scene that was written was like the emotional scene. Like this is the top of the mountain. This is the thing that's going to make everybody cry. And you workshop it, you call people back, and everybody, like, we spent hours on like bringing people in with this specific scene, and it's like so important. And you watch it and it's just like this throwaway little something, and it's like, oh, okay, same words but different direction. It's just like all of this tear, all of this raw vulnerability thrown away. So I think it's familiar and it's recognizable because you have been on the journey. So you've seen this person audition. If you went through an audition process, you've read the script. So there is a shape to it that is recognizable, but maybe it's wearing a different hat, or, that skirt has turned into a pant. And you're like, oh, okay. So that's why I try not to watch like rough cuts. I try not to watch dailies.
Okay.
It's none of my business.
Yeah. That's fair.
And I just wait for the final product because that's always exciting to see. And especially like when we're in community watching the final product. I think that's also interesting that we're missing right now,
Yeah.
But to be in a theater, be it movie theater or, a Broadway theater, off Broadway, off Broadway theater, and experiencing it for the first time with the audience, I think is very fun for me. Whereas like, the other crew members have experienced it through rehearsal, through tech, through that, or being on set and seeing that way. But for me, it's like, I let you go and I let you fly. And now, months later, sometimes years later, here we are in a theater just watching what's been happening.
Well, what is that like when you are a part of an audience watching something, the final product, because you're not watching along, you're like, nah, I'm waiting until I see the final product. Yeah. What is that like when you're watching that everyone around you is reacting? Because that's why I go to matinees, because I love when people talk in the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because it's a double-edged sword, I guess, or two sides of a coin where I know what happens because I've read the script, and I've seen the pages, if they're new pages that have come in and come out. And so I know how it's going to end. I know what's happening, right, from the beginning. So like if you and I, go to, Survival of the Thickest premiered. I've read all the scripts. I cast it. I do it. So I know what's happening in each single episode, but I am watching it for the first time, just like you are watching it for the first time. But I have a little bit of an asterisk because I know, just based off working on it, how this season is going to look.
Okay.
But I don't know how it's going to look in the sense of like, I haven't seen a cut, I wasn't on set. So it is a weird situation of like, we are having a same experience, and we are having a different experience
Mhm.
because I've seen the playbook. So I know that the quarterback is going to call a certain play. My boyfriend would be very happy that I'm using a football analogy right now. Hi, Brett. But yeah, so yeah, it's an experience that we're sharing because we are in community, but I know where the laughs are going to come. And then sometimes I don't. Sometimes there's a line and I'm like, "Oh, wow.
Mhm.
That got a laugh. That's amazing." You
Yeah.
know? Or like flip side, it's like something dramatic and you're like, oh, that got a laugh, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's exciting.
In that process of the creative evolution of the idea that
Mhm.
you're now watching the final product along with the other people because it's meant to be observed, it's meant to be
Yeah.
watched.
Mhm.
Is there like a mourning involved in that when maybe you were kind
Oh.
of like stuck to some ideas that you're like, oh, this was like a really good idea? Or
Yeah.
is there ever like, oh, missed opportunity or like,
Yeah, no, I try not to think about it that way because it's gone, it's gone. You know, if it's gone, it's gone. I mean, it's
yeah.
different with people, but
Mhm.
and we can get into that.
Mhm.
But with the work, it's like if they decided to go with actor A and I wanted to go with actor B, but they decided to go with actor A, they show up to set, they do the work, now it's on screen. I then am like, you know what? They went with actor A.
Yeah.
Whatever the universe needed for this actor to get this role, regardless of if I wanted actor B, that's who got the role. And so whatever I'm holding, that's wasted energy on my part that I don't need because here it is.
See, this is why you're so capable of love for actors because that's what people talk like when your name comes up, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, she's so kind because you know what everyone's going through.
Yes.
You do the audition, you forget about it.
Yes.
You did your job.
Did my job. The check cleared, hopefully.
Yeah.
It did. Hopefully it didn't bounce.
Yeah.
But you know, and that's what it is. And guess what? Actor B, you'll probably get something twofold. You know, you'll probably get something bigger and better. There's so many actors. You know, I've been in the game not as long as a lot of my colleagues. I
Mhm.
started casting professionally in 2012 and I cast all through school. So since 2008, I've had casting
Mhm.
around in my orbit. There's so many people that I could list that could not get arrested, couldn't get two people to say yes, let alone see them, that are now winning Academy Awards, that are now prototypes. I always say, like, you know, you couldn't, it was like, oh, no. And now years later, it's like, well, how about so-and-so? Or
Yeah.
so-and-so like this person's like, you weren't checking for that person 5
Uh-huh.
years ago. So yeah, I think again, back to our original discussion of like, what is for you is for you.
Mhm.
And if it's not, then it's not.
I think I needed time and space to grow up and out in order
Mhm.
to actually see that. Because now when I'm seeing like friends and colleagues, which my 18-year-old self would be screaming to say that.
Yeah.
It's like I go to a show, I know half the people.
Yeah.
I go, but I see it and I'm like, I know why you're here.
Yes.
Only you could do that.
Only you could do that.
Yeah. And
Only you could do that.
only them. And
Yeah.
there is a reason. And I love too following up on things I've auditioned for and I didn't get. And I go and I see, because it's not I hate,
Right.
you know, it's like the
No.
thing that your mom does. They're like, you
Yeah.
would have done better. I'm like, thank you,
Yeah.
mom. That's reserved for her.
That's only for her.
Exactly.
That's her job.
Yeah. And, but for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I see it.
Yeah.
And it's cool to like see what you didn't see.
Yeah.
Do you learn more when you're watching final products?
Oh, 100%.
Like that? Mhm.
I mean, you learn your past self learns from your future self all the
Mhm.
time. Again, like you were saying, one step in front, one step closer. But yeah, I learned so much of like, oh, that's what they meant. Oh, that's why. Oh, okay, got it. Because a lot of the times we don't know the full pie. We just know a piece of the pie,
Mhm.
you know? And it's like, oh, that's why you picked. Got it. Now
Yeah.
I see. Now I see. Because, you know, if we're working on a pilot, you know, rest in peace, but like if we're working on a pilot, we don't know what the rest of the season's going to look like. Or even if we're working on something that is a full series order, we don't know what season 2 is going to bring. You
Yeah.
know? And so sometimes it takes a little bit, or sometimes it's right then and there. And it's like, again, when you see it, final product, you see hair, you see makeup, you see clothing, you see lights, you see camera, you see action,
Mhm.
you know? And sometimes you don't get to see the whole zhuzh of that in the audition room. And sometimes you do. But I think, yeah, you learn a lot when you watch anything.
In life and
Mhm.
in your career, where or how, if you know, maybe it's always been a part of you, when did that ego shift change where you're like, okay, cool.
I think I've always had it, and correct me if I'm wrong, my lovely people. But I think I've always had it. I'm a middle child, but
Me too.
not in the sense of like, me, don't forget about me. I'm
Mhm.
very much of like, go with the flow. I'm very, it's go with the flow, but where is the flow? What time is the flow? And what do I need to wear for the flow? Everything else, I don't care about. I say I'm type B+.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I don't need to know every single detail, but I need to know the pertinent ones. Anyway,
Yeah.
but to your question,
Mhm.
I think my happiest piece is when I get to connect people and when I can actually like leave it like, oh, you all look good? Okay, bye. I've never thought of the ego in that way. I think what drives me is myself, not others. And I want to be better than I was yesterday and the day before and the day before that. But that has nothing to do with you. That has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with me. And I want to bring people along for the ride because if I'm having a good time, I don't want to be the only one having a good time. I want everybody else to have a good time with me. So yeah, I think it's always been there, and I'm very much of an empath. I'm very much of someone who everybody comes for me to listen because I am a good listener. I would rather not speak, even though I am here on a podcast. I would rather not speak, and I would rather just listen. So I think it's just a superpower.
It is a superpower because on this, from my vantage point over here, it doesn't sound competitive at all. And I think, a healthy bit of competitive nature is great, right? Yeah. But like from over here, I'm just kind of like, oh, but that just sounds like your secret momentum, just like something that's like innate for you. So you've always just been like that.
Yeah. It's weird.
No, it's not weird at all. It's beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, we've been through a lot. We've seen a lot. We've dealt with a lot. We've so I think, you pick up the breadcrumbs along the way and you put them in your satchel.
Yeah.
But I think, it's just realizing I try to always, if I'm having a problem with someone, I try to always stop. And I'm like, Erica, wait a second. Go to their shoes. Be in their shoes for 2 seconds and see where they're coming from. And a lot is illuminated from that. It's like, oh, right. I forgot that X, Y, and Z. I forgot they're going through this. I forgot that this just happened to them. So that's probably why they're acting like this. It has nothing to do with me. They are reacting instead of responding.
Yes.
And so I think, just based off of the people that I have dealt with along the way, I try to give as much grace as possible.
Yeah.
I know that's a very buzzy word right now, but I think what grace means, to your point, what we were talking about, understanding and listening and just being like, you know what, I have never and will never walk in your shoes. We are all humans trying to get through the day. How you get through the day and how I get through the day, hopefully it does not clash. But most of the time, if it is clashing, it honestly probably has nothing to do with me. It just has to do with something that you are reacting to. And let me just sit and not react, because then we're both reacting and we're not listening or responding to anything that's happening.
And then you have everyone involved just making it about themselves. And then there's no space in the middle for the gray, for the limbo, for anyone to be like, I understand.
Yeah.
And, this, as a fellow middle child too, it's like when someone's like, wow, you're so observant. I'm like, thank you so much, trauma.
Thank you so much, trauma. No, when everyone's like, you're so funny, I'm like, ooh, trauma and damage. It's a good little marriage.
It's the spicy.
Yeah.
The understanding for me is the elite form of thinking, form of humaning. And it's not, the right and the wrong always gets me.
There's not, I think, of course, there are wrong things, there are very wrong things. But I think when it comes to artistic vision, like all of that, the stuff that we are in, there is no right and there's no wrong, because at the end of the day, it's going to take many a shape. And at the end of the day, you're going to say it on set. You're going to take 3 takes and then editor's going to pick the best one. And then the directors come in and say like, I'll actually use that other take. And then it's going to go into the assembly and actually let's do the second take that we didn't even think about. Yeah. And so nothing is right. Nothing is wrong. It's just the thing.
Yeah. But being open in that way is so pertinent because you have a great idea, I have a great idea, but there is an unknown idea that we haven't realized 100%. Yet that happens that we put ours together and then go forward, and that one sounds very exciting because it's something neither of us thought about before, but it has parts of us, and I love that. One question I do have for you is, in your words, what do you assume someone who hires you knows about you?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Because because if they knew anything about me, they'd be like, what? No, I think, oh, that's such a beautiful question. I think if someone who hires me knows that I'm a hard worker,
Okay.
knows that I am not going to leave anybody astray, knows that I'm not going to finish until it is feeling done. And
Okay.
we feel that it's done. You know, I think my work ethic is probably the thing that has spread throughout conversations. I think I work hard.
Yeah.
And you know, I think there's some good obviously from that, and I think there is some like gotta get it, you gotta get it, you gotta get it, and it's like, okay, maybe work harder than smarter. But then I think, you know, sometimes you do need to work harder, you know, and figure out how to go through this journey. So I think, I think my work ethic is probably the thing that most people know from that. And then they get to know me as the days go on.
How long did it take you to say firmly in your shoes that you're a hard worker and believe it?
Kindergarten. Like, yeah. No, but I think of how I was raised.
Okay.
You know, my dad always let us know that like enough is not enough. You know, like you have to be 2 times as good as someone else. Like this is kindergarten. You know, he has a famous saying of don't get ready, be ready.
Yeah.
You know, so coming from the family that I come from it's very, you're going to finish on time and you're going to do it well.
Okay.
So there's no margin for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was always someone who I always say I was good at school. You know, I was, and I didn't really understand people that, unless they had a learning disability or something, those that just didn't get B's. Like I didn't understand, like if you just listen and you do the work based off what you were listening with, you could get at least a B, let alone an A.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I was straight A student all through high school and college and things like that. But yeah,
It's not easy.
it's not easy.
No.
But I was good at school because, again, if you give me an assignment, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And if there is a test, I'm going to study for it because that's what you need to do for a test. And regardless if I get an A or a B, like whatever it is, but I'm going to study and I'm going to do my best to solve this problem. What that is at hand.
Within that structure, did you ever have a hard time receiving the new information, making it your own, and then putting it to use?
Yes. Yes. I think it's back to the shame question. It's the freedom to make it my own. And it's the freedom to ask or to say, you know, this actually doesn't work well. I think that actually came, I think I do remember the first time where I kind of bucked up against authority to be like, I think you're doing this wrong. Like, I think I remember doing that. I think it was like 2016 when I was 26. I think that was kind of the first time where it's like, okay, I think I have big girl pants on. I think I have big girl shoes on. I think I have this blazer on. I think I can make these decisions. You think you're doing something that works, but I think there's a better way to get into it. That, again, like you're saying, you have an idea, I have an idea, and the idea in the middle is probably the best way to go forward.
Yeah.
For this specific project. And I do remember being like, okay, I think I'm going to speak up. Because I think another thing with me is like, I won't say too much.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the first time. And now, you know, close to 10 years later, it is easier for me to just say my piece.
Yeah.
If things just don't feel efficient, or if things don't feel like this is the best foot forward for this specific project or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I feel like people who are creative always have, from a young age, that like voice in them that even if they listen to it or not, it's always there. And it's always talking to them and like kind of collaborating with them as life happens around them to be like, I don't like this. Like, we're going to do this, but like, I don't really think I like it. Yeah, this is not the thing.
And I've been very lucky that not only do I have people beside me being like, oh, that's crazy. Are you good? Like, you know, but also mentors to like be like, Erica, what do you think? And I was like, is there another Erica in the room?
Yeah,
you're like,
yes, what do I think?
Okay. And that's why I always say, regardless of if you're an intern, you're an assistant, you're an associate, you're a coordinator, whatever it is, if someone's like, hey, Stacy, what do you think? You got to be ready. They're calling you out. You could be in a room of 50 people.
Yeah.
And someone's looking at you the whole time being like, you know what? I wonder what she thinks. Hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
You know? And have an answer.
For me, that's when life got interesting. That's when art got interesting. Because if I had a catchphrase as a superhero, it would be like, what are you thinking about?
What you thinking about?
Yeah, because when someone makes a face, I'm like, oh, I see a lot in there. What are you thinking about?
Body language.
But then never did I ask myself until, I think 26 is actually a year of reckoning. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah. I think I said, was 26 or 27 the year that I actually opened my eyes. I think it's one of I did a Facebook status about it, but like at the end of 2016 or the 2017. Oh, 2016 was realizing stuff. Yes, because that was fun. But yeah, no, for sure. But I think once you get over the hump of your mid-20s and then you get it to the late mid-20s, it's sort of just like, I can stretch a little bit. Like I can groove a little bit. Like I can play a little bit. You know, it's like because obviously you're not being seen as a kid anymore. You know, you're not 21 just out of school. You're not 22 out of school. 23 everybody hates. Like you know, it's
no one likes you when you're 23.
No one likes you when you're 23. But yeah, as you get older, stepping to that, it's. Yeah, I can flex.
I don't know why it was that age, but I was talking to someone recently who just is going through that at the time. And I was like, 26 for some reason. I don't know energetically why, but that is the age when we rip it all off. Because that's what I did at 26. I ended a 5-year-long relationship, moved into the city out of Brooklyn, was getting my master's at the new school. And it just was like this time where I was like, oh. And then it also coincided with becoming YouTube University because of the pandemic. And everyone was not doing well solo. And then I was this one person who was actually thriving, where I was like, wait, I get to produce in my own, because I lived alone. I had that like privilege of doing that. So I just made an entire green screen on one wall and just played Blue's Clues for a year. You know,
Blue's do, you can too.
Yeah, and like I'll learn to edit, and I'll just like learn to expand myself in other ways, because I just don't want to sit and wait and be the waiting person. I want to be the person who's actively thinking and who's like, well, what's next, and who can I bring with me? That's exciting to me, is like that, creating that evolution and momentum, but like with your community, and you talk about community, and that is what so much of art is.
100%.
Which is why, like, I'm curious about your thoughts on this too. Very expensive theater.
Very expensive theater.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
In what capacity?
In the capacity of, well, I'll give you my context on it first, is there have been shows that have been so expensive I have not been able to go to, as most people cannot. To me, the spirit of theater is acknowledging the peoplehood, is acknowledging the community. And when something as beautiful as theater becomes inaccessible, it makes me sad, because it makes me think it's something else. So I feel like it should be called something else.
I believe that. I think there's also the thought process of, if you can't see that show because it's expensive, there's a show a couple blocks down the way that you can see. You know, that could be the next big thing, or could have the next big thing in the cast, or the director will be the next big thing. You know, it's like, take Rent. You know, that started this, and like now here we are. You know, we wouldn't have a lot of the shows that we see now. Chorus Line, and that, to your point, those shows were so accessible to the masses. But I think now more than ever, and what we have seen in the last 5 years, is we just have to be creative. We have to be creative. We have to be the ones to be like, yeah, okay, that show is there. There's nothing I can do to change that, unless I sell a kidney or two, both of them. You know, wheel me in. I'll take a seat and watch this show. You know, but like, I can't change that box. I can't change the price of their ticket. What I can do, though, is see if there's another show that I can afford and go see and support that. Or even better, if there's a friend that's putting on a reading, go support them. You know, and support doesn't have to cost money. If they have a flyer, post it, tell people about it. So I think there's nothing for me to think about, because it's here, and obviously it's not going anywhere, just based off the season that we have and the season that is coming up. I think it's just, where do you fit in it? And how do you want to experience art? And where you want to experience art. And we are very lucky that we live in New York City, where we can experience art that costs thousands of dollars and that costs no dollars. I think that's on you. You're the conductor of that.
Okay. And that's great, because that's accepting the information and redirecting. I'm not going to stand there and pound on the door that's not going to open for me.
It's not going to open for
I'm not begging anyone.
Heck no.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
What you say is reallocate. So it's like reallocate the energy, reallocate the resources.
Yes. Or if you really want to see that show and you are pounding on that door and that's not going to get in, it's like, okay, how can I volunteer? You know, how do I get in this building? Because for some reason you really, really want to get into that building. That's totally fine. figuring that, but that again, you are the conductor of that.
Yes.
You know, who in your circle has the key
Mhm.
or can jimmy a lock,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
whatever that is. But if you can't do it, then you rely on your community to get
Mhm.
into it. But that is still pivoting
Yeah.
because the knocking on the door is not going to work.
No, but it's the creative thinking. Like,
Yeah.
come back to your own brain, figure out what resources you
Yeah.
have, and then just redo the puzzle.
Redo the puzzle.
When you started out casting at NYU,
Yeah.
it was a role that you just, I heard you on a podcast recently, right, for casting networks. It's called
Mhm.
How We Roll. That's right.
How we roll. Robert Peter Paul.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
was such a fun interview.
Yeah. He's such a good, I've known him for years. He's such a
He
good
has
guy.
like a very good, his voice sounds warm and approachable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he is a warm and approachable human.
I love that.
Mhm.
When you started out casting at NYU, how did you transition from doing work at school into it becoming your profession and you getting paid for it?
Yeah, I think everything is hand in hand. Like you said, I was at NYU casting all through college.
Mhm.
Junior year was the first light bulb moment of like, I think this could be a career.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just because it was sort of like it was the thing I did, but not the thing I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life because it found me. Like a
Yeah.
lot of casting directors or casting professionals, it just found me. But junior year, when everybody was doing when I was in Dublin, I went to Dublin to study music videos and did that because that's what I went to film school thinking I was going to do, be a music video director. So they had this program where you go to Dublin and you make music videos. And when I got back, I was like, that was great. That was fun. Had a lot of good times. But I think casting is probably the thing that will make me go, you know, and not leaving everything else behind in its dust. But I think this will possibly be a career to see. And so then at the end of junior year, I applied to internships like one does. And I started interning at NBC that senior year, and I interned there for a year. And then I graduated and I started ABC later in 2012, that fall. But yeah, I think everything just builds upon everything. Most, if not all of my jobs goes back to NYU.
Okay.
Even the posting that I found, the ABC job, came from NYU. You know, and that's a fun story in and of itself. But I think I am now working on three indies right now from former classmates. You know, like, so like that's when you're a senior in college or, you know, right out of college, they always say like, you will be working with these people for the rest of your life, and you roll your eyes and you suck your teeth and you like do stuff with your shoulders. You're like, you don't know what you're talking about, but it's true. I've been working with the same people since first day of college. You know, The Surrogate, which, you know, was one of I won an Artios for that, but I worked with Jeremy Hirsch forever in school. I met him first day of college, you know? And so I did his narrative film, I did his thesis film, and I did his feature film, you know? And so that's why community is so important to me, because I have seen it not only work for me, but work for my colleagues, and we're just better for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. But, and you also can't replicate that knowing.
Yeah.
When you have a shorthand with someone like
100%.
that, that's just
amazing. And like my producing partner, Joe Gerbino, again, met him first day of college. Talk about just like not even speaking and communicating. We could just look at each other and we know exactly what we just said a full on 1,000-page paper just by like looking at them. You know, it's that innate thing when you know someone for as long as you do. And also from 18 to 35, that's half of your life. You know, I've known these people for half of my life. And like you said, there is a shorthand. There is a communication of like, I know he's not going to like that. And they're like, oh, well, I'm like, I'm telling he's not going to like it. And then he comes and he's like, oh, I don't like this at all. And I'm like,
yeah.
You know,
you could have just believed me for the asset that I am.
I've known this man since he was 18. And, you know, so yeah, it's an interesting process to see us grow up and to see us be, you know, 18 years old with these cameras to now be Emmy-nominated producers on RuPaul's Drag Race, or like, you know, do like all of this stuff. It's amazing and exciting to see. And I think that's why you were talking about competitive. There is that fire that pushes you, but I think iron sharpens iron, you know, the Bible says, but also via science is just very much of like, oh, I want to do better, not because you're doing better, but because like we can do better. It's a we. It's not a you and me. It's a we.
Correct.
And so that's exciting to see. All of my classmates are just people that I've met along the way. Like, kill the game.
and having a community that you grow with too, where they know older versions.
I know.
You know, but
yeah,
they
I was just thinking about that the other day.
really.
Yeah. Just the people like that I haven't talked to since high school,
Mhm.
but knew high school high school love versus someone who just met me today,
Mhm.
who knows 35-year-old. It's like it's the same but different.
Yeah.
I think confidence is probably the biggest difference,
Mhm.
personally. But I think because there's that social media trend where it's like I had coffee with my younger self, and I love that. And I also love like I had coffee with my childhood best friend, which I'm lucky that it's the same person.
Yeah.
My childhood best who I've known since birth.
Mhm.
I was the maid of honor of her wedding a few years
Wow.
ago, so I still have pockets of people that not only know teenage me, but know little me. So I'm very lucky to have that. But I would love to see the trend of like, I had coffee with my friend that I used to dance with every single day. And we just talked about, this and that and this and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I call those versions little Kate.
Yeah.
Because I have to like give her a hug
Gotta
sometimes.
give her a hug.
And also because my visual for myself is like I am this big Kate becoming bigger, but I have so many little Kates following behind me and I'm bringing
100%.
them with me. Where I'm like,
Yeah.
look what we're doing. Like, how cool
I
is
know.
this?
And that's another thing. I think, this business is brutal. Like
It
I
is.
think,
Yeah.
we've said a lot of beautiful things, which is very true, but this business is very brutal.
Mhm.
And when it gets the hardest or when it's like the lowest, it's like 12-year-old you would be speechless
Yeah.
right now that like you are talking about these people as if they are your best friends. Yeah, I'll put them on the list. Like, yeah, okay, I'll check their avail. And like you're
Mhm.
talking to the biggest stars, agents, and managers about a project that you are working on. It's like 12-year-old you, like that's crazy. That's crazy.
It is a nice check-in to sort of like go
Yeah.
back. Before we finish, I have a question about music for you.
Hey.
So, if that was going to be your first thing that you wanted to direct
Mhm.
music videos.
Mhm.
Music is listening, music is experiencing. What has
Mhm.
your relationship been like with music your whole life?
Oh, music is my life.
Okay.
Music is my life. I grew up. Music is actually probably the first thing I thought I was going to do. Not be a musician.
Okay.
But I tell the story all the time. I have a vivid memory of me holding Destiny's Child Off the Wall CD and opening that booklet. Rest
Or
in peace.
the posters.
The
that used to-
posters. But this was the booklet and it had the credits. And I was like, what's an executive producer? What's a sound designer? What's a sound engineer? What's an audio engineer? What's A&R? Like all of this, that, and I was just very curious about that. And there was a time where a big thing with me is because I'm a dancer, because I have music, because I have film, I'm always trying to find ways to connect them. And at some point, there was a moment in my life where I wanted to be a music supervisor for film and TV.
Ooh.
But yeah, music plays a huge part of my life. I grew up playing piano, playing drums. My colleagues all sometimes make fun of me because I talk about rhythm a lot. I'm like, ooh, the rhythm of the scene is off, or your cadence is off, or it doesn't groove the way that I think it could groove. So I do, talk sometimes rhythmically or musically. I'm casting my first musical right now, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, I think we all have our tools and our toolboxes, and that's why I always tell artists, like, don't forget about what you used to do when you were kids. So if you were someone who loved to jump rope, keep jump roping.
Yeah.
If you're someone who grew up playing the harp, play the harp. Like don't say no to your extracurriculars now that they're hobbies and life is hard and maybe whatever, but always have the curiosity and always try to put other tools in your toolbox, because it just becomes you become a better artist that way, because you become a better human that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, music is my jam.
Is your tagline?
Yeah. And all types of music. I'm like, my boyfriend is always like, how do you, I was listening to Lainey Wilson the other day and he was like, who is that? I was like, Lainey Wilson,
Yeah.
4x4, like, and he was like, how do you know this stuff? Like, and it's just like, well, I have Spotify Premium. And so sometimes it just pops on up.
Yeah.
But because I love music. I love music.
And that expression has also expanded into your casting and is expanded into your life as a person. And I think that's whatever identity anyone has. I feel like, if it's actor, if it's casting director, it should be actor plus, casting director plus, because to separate out life and art is, I feel, a huge mistake, because they're the same thing.
Yeah.
They feed the other. And what makes you a whole human is being three-dimensional and honoring that three-dimensionality and also the three-dimensionality of the environment that you're in too.
Yeah.
Why would you ignore any of that? There's more information there for you.
More information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Where can people find you?
They can find me. Where can people find me? Instagram at elove67. That's probably where I am a lot of the time. But my website, hardcasting.com, is also a good place to find things. Maybe not me, but to find things and information.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you see me on the street, say hi.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
That flew.
One and done.
One and done. Seriously.
Wolf, how did it look?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was really good, yeah.
And that's the latest. I'm honored to have been part of your thinking sphere today. Feel free to share, like, and subscribe on this platform or follow and participate on any of my social media platforms. If this practice intrigues you as much as it does me, then join us in the Me3 community, where we will work directly and you'll curate a mindful method of thinking to define your own creative conscious. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Authenticated. I love that you're here.